In this video, we're going to show you how to install the rear bumper of a Model 3 Legacy without the sensor cutout. So there was a period, I think in 23, where they started removing these ultrasonic sensors, which makes it, in a way, in my opinion, a little bit easier because these sensors with the holes, I tend to stretch a little bit more. So this will be actually a little bit easier. So we're going to go ahead and get this all prepped up. One reminder is to make sure you get all the edges cleaned up. We've already done that. You can get some microfiber and the tack solution and basically just grab all the edges, right? Okay. And then once we get to this point, I'm going to get my squeegee and I'm going to do my last bit of basically contamination control and getting all this slip solution off the surface. And while I'm doing this, the construction of this bumper is going to be basically in two sections. It is one piece, but it seams right here where this body line is. So that's a little bit more of a natural seam. We try to put the seams in the body line because that's what makes sense. So that's what we're doing. Okay. Okay, this is a pretty big piece. So if you have an assistant, I would definitely ask them for help for this part because you're laying down a pretty large piece. So when we do this, we're going to do something called reverse roll method, okay? I am going to start on this side right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put slip solution everywhere except this section so that I can actually use it to tack. Okay, I have my piece right here. Okay, and what we're going to do is just spray the top layer just a little bit. Make sure my fingers are also hydrated, and then we're going to just start with this section right here. Okay, so once you get to this point, I'll show you how this works. Awesome, just like that. And because I didn't put a whole lot of slip in there, you can see it easily sticks to the surface right here. Get that stuck a little bit. And you could start pulling all the way out, supporting the bottom like so. And just go all the way out, just like that, okay? The liner can be pretty problematic in the sense that you just want to be away from it. You could put it underneath the car too. That's a pretty common practice. But you just want it away from your feet because it does get slippery. All right. So next step is I'm just going to make sure I'm hydrating the top layer because you want to create, some slip on the top when you squeegee so you don't damage the pieces itself. And then we're going to start hydrating all of these areas right here. Amazing. All right, so there's some areas that it's still kind of holding, which is fine. Okay, and then certain areas right here. All right, so now that we've gone to the spot, I want to kind of explain to you the process right here. Be very, very careful. Certain parts like this, I would actually recommend using a little bit of tack, not a lot, and just going to just tack that down. What this will do is make sure that it doesn't fall, because if your car is not lifted like this, it would fall to the ground, which means that you might be too dirty to install, so just make sure you control that. All right, so once this is moving freely, one thing that what you're trying to do here is you're looking at 2 points, guys. One point is going to be this right here, the bottom, and then the other is going to be this top layer. And this top layer is going to be at a point where it's like just a little bit above it, okay, just so you guys know. And then this little layer right here is going to pull a little bit. So if you look at it, it's going to kind of pull into place a little bit better. You notice that right there? So it's gonna look something like this, okay? And if it's a little off, don't worry too much, but it's gonna be about, I would say, almost like a centimeter off. So this is gonna feel a little bit weird in terms of the alignment, but it'll make sense a little bit later. So roughly about, I'll say there. Okay, so same thing, guys. I got 6 inches, roughly about this whole width. Like I said, this is going to be pulled a little bit later. So that's really what we're going to focus on a little bit later. Okay? Okay, I'm going to tack this. Now that I have this 6 inches completely tacked, we're going to go ahead and pull this out all the way to the other side. And this is a good amount of stretch because there's a huge amount of concaveness right here. So if you haven't, go ahead and spray some more tack solution. You can see this is tacked right here, and you could actually go underneath it again, just like that. And then your focus is this top edge, and it just goes, it doesn't go all the way around, but just a little bit around, okay? So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and just use some tack right here. And we're going to go ahead and put this up. And we're going to go ahead and just pull this all the way to the other side, just like that. Okay? And you can see the alignment on the top right here. That looks fantastic. And once I'm happy, I can actually go a little harder. Okay? And then you can see that this part can kind of move around a little bit. I'll go ahead and tack these down as well. Okay. Of course, my Model 3 right here is a 2018, so it does have the sensor, but for this video, we are focusing on a no sensor version, just so you guys know. All right, so once we have this tacked, you can see it goes just a little bit onto that. We're gonna go ahead and tack these top edges down. There's gonna be a little bit of stretch. Just focus on this corner first, one at a time. Okay, so I sprayed my tack already. I've tacked that down. And then I want to spray tack all the way up here. And I've also done that right there. Perfect. Amazing. All right, so now you can see because the stretch was even, it's quite even all the way around. So as long as it's even, you can actually start squeegeeing, away from it, and squeegee all the way inside right here. And then all we're focusing on is right here. We're not really focusing on anything below this. So let's go ahead and get all these out. This big bubble right here, not a really huge issue, honestly. Go ahead and pull it right here, and then we can kind of push it a little bit away. And then this is the part where we first, look at this line alignment right here. It's really, really clean. It goes right below it, and then you could just simply go downwards to that area. And because we stretched a good amount right here, you can see that it starts to, you can actually pull everything down, and there's very little what we call fingers or wrinkles. All right? So the only wrinkle that we have is this two little spots. Go ahead and spray some more tack solution into this area, and then you could simply get it out. So that's fantastic. Awesome. So you're gonna have some of this smaller fingers, and these are very, very minor, so I wouldn't really worry too much about it yet. But you can try to get rid of some of it by just, pushing it down with your tack solution. And you can see that it did work to a certain degree, right? Awesome. Again, I'm actually gonna worry about those sensors later since this is not that kit. So please ignore those sensors. So now that this whole section is done, we're literally gonna do the same thing, the carbon copy to the other side. it's going to be tempting to move this, but here's the thing. If you move this, there's not going to be enough hold right here where it's going to kind of mess up this area. So we're going to make sure this is still hydrated, which we already just checked. We're going to go ahead and move to the other side and basically do the exact same thing on the other side. So we're going to free this up a little bit. Okay, there we go. Got that. Bravo. Nice. All right, so same thing, guys. There's not an insane amount of stretch, but it is a little bit of stretch. So it's just gonna be a little bit right here. Just kind of focusing on this surface right here. Honestly, there's almost no stretch whatsoever. And this looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit. For the most part, that's pretty good. Like everything just kind of lines up right here. So this is going to be where this is going to be tacked. It's right there. So let's go ahead and grab our tack solution. Okay. All right, same thing, guys. I basically do the first, 6 inches or so around this area. That's really all I'm focusing on. I know there's some tension here, but I'll show you how to get rid of it in a little bit. Okay, so once this is good, 6 inches right here, let's go ahead and focus on all right here again. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pull from right here. And one tip, guys, if you're like sliding around too much, you just get a microfiber, clean the top surface of the film itself. It'll be easier to grab and pull, okay? So what you're looking for here, again, just a reminder, is this right here, this top line right here. And once you feel comfortable, go ahead and spray some of that tack solution. We're gonna go ahead and move that into this space. Right there, okay? And then same thing here, guys. Making sure this is all good still. Amazing. All right, so that's all done. Let's go ahead and push this and that. Okay, a little bit more tack. It didn't want to stick very well. That's okay. There you go. Now that sticks. And the same thing here, guys. Gonna hold that up. And then all this line kind of just works itself out. So I want to go ahead and tack this line. Right? You can kind of adjust it if you need to. But that fits pretty wonderfully right there. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this out. All right, and now that this whole line is done, you can actually start squeegeeing the rest of this tension right here. And once you bring this tension down, notice how it just kind of bubbles in like that. And then of course, this whole area lines up magically. This is how the kits are made, so that once you get kind of one area, it fits the next area, and it just kind of rinse and repeat. Okay, again, small amount of fingers right here. We always say divide and conquer, so just kind of do small at a time, so like this one right here. And then we made it even smaller right here, so these get easier to even handle. So just kind of slowly those two are gone. These are, for the most part, gone. And then I just got this, not even that big, but you can kind of let it sit, let it simmer a little bit, and then go ahead and get that out of there. Amazing. Awesome. So that is the process on getting all this done. It's very important to kind of focus on where you need to focus on, which is basically kind of this middle section of the bumper. And then we can focus on the rest. So before we actually do all this, because the reason being is this is actually a separate tail. So if we wanted to pick this back up and then hydrate it, it's actually fairly easy. All you have to do is just grab this, hydrate it, and then you're done. So honestly, this is actually the last step. So before we even get to the tails, as I just mentioned, we're really going to focus on the center part of this, which is all right here. Okay, so the focus is going to be just kind of getting this all out of here. Okay, and before you start, okay, here's the main thing that you want to look at is the alignment point right here down the middle. All right. So mine looks actually pretty fantastic. So I don't think I have to do too much, but I do want to tack that. But that bottom needs to be a little bit before the edge for longevity. So this is the center right here. I know that because the license plate right here. And then I just want to make sure that this is good. And there you have it. The center is now tacked and it's right underneath that. And then, once you have this, you can actually start making that line right here. All right, so once we made this line, you're gonna have some fingers here and there, but really the goal is, you see where this cutout is? A little before that, you're just gonna get everything up to that point, okay? There we go. If you want, you could actually start tacking that, because the alignment on that looks actually pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and tack this. Okay. Same thing here, guys. You can see that it fits fairly well already. Okay. Okay, same thing, guys. This is obviously not quite there yet. So all I want to do is just kind of get this to where it needs to be. Awesome. Awesome. And then now you can really focus on getting this top part. Awesome. So we have a little bit of finger, but we're going to be able to get that all out. Same thing over here, and we'll get that out a little bit later, but you can see most of the fingers are gone, especially in the center area, and that's really where you want to focus on. So now that we started on this side, that's what we're going to start with first. So let's go ahead and pull this out, making sure that this is still hydrated, like so. And you're basically going to stretch it to this side right here. Okay? So when you look here, I'm just going to go ahead and spray some tack all up in there. And your focus is right here. Just move this across. just like that. Just enough where it can kind of meet. Look at that. So there you go. And then you can pull this down just a tiny bit to give it that. There you go. So if you have to, you can actually move this as well. And then once you get that line done, you could basically just focus on getting all these edges right here. And you can just spray some tack all up in there. And again, this is called a butt seam because they're right next to each other instead of like overlapping. Like vinyl, you actually quite overlap often, but in this, we're just gonna seam it right up to it. And if you notice, once you do that kind of seam, everything kind of lines up a lot cleaner. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray my tack solution a little bit right there. Look at that, that's nice. All right, and then just making sure that this line lines up with everywhere else, which it does. And there you have it. Look at that. Very happy with that. Awesome. So now that we have the top part done, you can actually start pulling this down. Just go making sure this is all good. And then just bring this all down. This is probably, to be honest, the hardest piece in this kit. So we kind of recommend, if you're starting on this and you're watching this, we actually recommend doing this the last because you'll have the most experience by the time you get to this, right? Because you would have done the front bumper, which would have given you a good amount of experience in terms of stretching and kind of understanding the fingers and all that stuff. Awesome. So we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Let's go get our slip solution right here. Hydrate first. And then tack on the edges. And then just pull, focusing on the first 2 inches like that. Okay. And then typically I like to just anchor that for a little bit, really push it up to that surface. I like letting it sit just maybe a few seconds at least. And then just pull this corner down just a tiny bit. There we go. Awesome. So now that we have this edge done, this is the same thing right here. You basically just line it up by touching this little anchor. And because you got this anchor down, if you get this little edge right here on the end kind of figured out in terms of alignment, everything else kind of fits together, if you notice. So you can actually push the film against each other and it will kind of seam itself a lot easier. This is a trick to a seam, is to make sure you have point A, point B, and then the rest becomes a lot easier. All right, now that we have this done, we're gonna go ahead and make sure that this top part is pretty solid as well, which it is. Okay, we'll go ahead and spray that tack solution all up in there. Okay. Awesome. Great. All right, just like the other side, you can push everything back down and everything else should kind of work itself out in terms of the alignment points. You can see all of it starts kind of coming down. All right, so now this stuff right here, you can actually deal with it a little bit later. You can let that dry. All that water wants to come back in because of this little area right here with the reflector. And that's part of the reason why. And now we're going to deal with the middle and then the top part of the middle. So basically, I'm going to spray on top. And before we get started, just spray some tack as well. And remember I said divide and conquer. So basically you want to divide it across all this middle ground and then just kind of work itself out. Instead of having a big finger, you basically make that into smaller fingers or wrinkles and then work it down. So you can see that. Look at that already. We made it into a smaller one. And then same thing here. You kind of distribute it, made it into a smaller one, and you keep working itself out right here. So there you go. That's it. Awesome. All right, so we got some of this. That one, I think we can work on it as we go. And all right, so now our fingers are getting actually quite small, and we can really focus on these, and then getting these down. There you go. So, one thing I'm going to do is I actually have another bottle as well, right here. And what I'm trying to do is, you see there's a lot of soap in there. And I just want to flush it out. Because when you flush it out like this, it makes it a lot easier for it to stick. And right now, there's a lot of soap. So by using some of that, just clean water, just straight up water, helps with a lot of this. Yeah. So this is going to take some time, but kind of be patient with it. If it's smaller fingers like this, you can actually get it later once it's dried. But basically, you just try to flush it out from away as much soap as you can. So we actually made a small design change too in the midst of all this. So there's actually going to be a little bit more stretch than I did over here in this video. So there should be far less fingers or this wrinkles right here in the actual design of it. Same thing right here. What's happening is we try to kind of find the balance of not too much stretching and not too little stretching, because I think I try to avoid stretch as much as possible. If you don't have to stretch, I just don't stretch it. But I think this gets to a point where it's a little bit harder. So that's why we added a little bit more stretch in the final design of it. Okay. So now that we're in the final stages right here, one thing to keep in mind is I don't like working with the trunk open. There's a lot of felt in this area and a lot of the dust kind of comes out. So you actually want to avoid this area right here. So you're going to go ahead and spray all that tack solution all up in that area. And then you can slowly start working out these fingers. I like to go all the way like this. And then this part, I think, gets a little bit easier. Okay. One thing too is you want to grab your tack solution and then just use that to kind of grab this edge. And once you grab this edge, it definitely helps. Right here. There you go. So I'm distributing that a little bit. and then keep working itself out. Notice how I don't have one giant finger down the middle. I have it all in the separate places right here. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do, and then go all the way over, and then really try to grab this edge, because once it grabs this edge, it shouldn't pop back up. So same thing here, guys. It's this cycle right here where you basically push that in. Amazing. All right, we just got like just a couple more right here. Okay. Amazing. All right, so for this part, you just want to hold this corner right here. And what this does is it holds that tension. Spray your tack solution and try to anchor that in. And then once you hold this area, you might have to use a little bit more tack. Just kind of push it all in there. And then after that, you can work on the top portion right here. Oops. Okay, and then if that has some trouble, you could actually use the microfiber technique, where basically you just kind of wick away some of that moisture. This helps a lot because what it does is once the moisture is gone right here, it's less likely for some of the fingers to show up again. Look at this. That looks fantastic. Just make sure that you don't have any moisture right here before doing this, or like I'm talking about on the surface right here. And you kind of work your way all the way here. So I got the left side done. The right side is actually very, very similar. I'm going to go ahead and let this go a little bit. Before you move on, just make sure that none of the water kind of went below this body line. So just be careful about that one. And then once you do that, you can go ahead and start working your way up. All right, this part is really one of those things where it takes a little bit long, but like I mentioned, in our final design, we added a little bit less material in the middle, so you have to stretch it a little bit more, which will help with some of these fingers too, as you see right here. And remember that trick I showed you? Use that microfiber and kind of push it around like this. And this helps a lot because again, it wicks away some of the moisture and it helps so it doesn't pop back up like that. Because if there's all this water right here that sits, it just keeps entering, right, all this area. So you need to get the moisture away from this area first for it to really adhere completely. So this is the step right here. Make sure you have a clean microfiber. You're not using a dirty one. All right, so there you have it. You're gonna go ahead and finish this out. When you're doing this part, just make sure that you're looking at some of the water. It tends to kind of fall down here a little bit. Use a lot of tack, work your way, use the microfiber, and you should be good to go. Like I mentioned, we did in the final design added a little bit more stretch, so you should have a little bit less tension, a little bit less material like this. So this should come down a little bit easier. But other than that, the rest of it, this is all good. Just making sure this is good. If you have any fingers anywhere around here, you're gonna push it down once it completely dries. But now your rear bumper It's completely protected.